Happy Monday. We
Yeah.
are going to wing a podcast for you today in terms of kids' health because so many people have reached out and been watching our stories, talking about some of the kiddos that we're working with in our practice. We have a functional pediatric nurse on staff, and she's amazing. And her story is really powerful. We need to have her on and talk about she left conventional medicine to do the functional work. She also works in a neurofeedback clinic, which is really cool because she has had her own journey, but also then, her children and dealing with things like pans and pandas and um is just very passionate. Like I think Becca and I, as owners of FitMom who have two small children, it's really sad to hear some of the stories that we hear because kids are struggling. I don't know if anybody else realizes this, but like this is the next generation and the generation to follow. And for women, we give them our microbiome, our nutrient status, our, you know, detoxification abilities when we're pregnant, right? Because we're exposed to so many things these days. I think it's like over 700 chemicals and things that we're exposed to every day. And so if we are struggling when we go into pregnancy with a lot of nutritional deficiencies, what happens is that your body says, I need to build this baby either way. So I'm going to suck it out of you even more. And then we start to see mom's health on the backside decline. We can see, I'm working with a family right now. I talked about this on social media, the differences between her two children. And I was talking about this and then had my call with her later that day. And she's like, yeah, what you said is so true. Like, I was really sick with the second pregnancy, and he's sick. In my first, I was in a pretty good spot, and he's got a lot showing up on his test, but he's not real symptomatic. And so it's like, okay, maybe he had the immune defenses because he got a lot of the good nutrients from you that he needed: vitamin C, zinc, magnesium, all of these things that really help your immune system. And then maybe he wasn't living in this environment that his younger brother was, and his younger brother was exposed to more things in utero than he was. So there's a lot of factors here, and so this is not to make any mom feel bad or guilty. It's just to really recognize, the way that I say this is, pregnancy is the most nutrient demanding time of a woman's life. It is a huge life event for us. Postpartum is the most nutrient depleting time, right? Because you've lost all your hormones. You just have this big hormone crash. You've also, again, because all of this nutrients that are, being depleted from your body, you have a demand to replenish that. And so we talk about this in way of like the fourth trimester. But we know that we give our baby's microbiome, our children, two generations from, our microbiome are impacted. And so we want to just talk a little bit today about encouraging you to follow your gut, to ask questions, to seek alternative solutions if you're not getting what you need from your pediatrician. If you feel like something is just off, right? Recognize there are so many people out there. We love Well Rooted. She is a good friend of ours. She owns Well Rooted here in our area. That's where I take my children and have for a while. She also has online for some things functionally, but in terms of like early on, your annual visits or just well visits or whatever, that does need to be in person. And so if it's not her, like someone like them who recognizes that there are alternative ways than just shooting our kids up with vaccine or antibiotics and loading them up with all
Mhm.
these medications every time that we have, an issue, and really asking the bigger question as to what is the root cause of these reoccurring sinus infections? What is the root cause of the reoccurring strep infections? What's the root cause of reoccurring ear infections, right? Like all these things, rashes and skin issues. And we are just seeing asthma, allergies at such exponential rates. And so we're going to give you some things today that we think are contributors, some of the top contributors, considerations, and then where do we go from here, right? What do we
Yeah.
do outside of like obviously the individual work? How do we lay a good foundation for these kids to support them?
Yeah. Because I mean, just some statistics that are concerning. 20% of children under 18 in the US have a special healthcare need. One in five kids has a special healthcare need. So that could be a chronic condition, that can be a developmental issue, that could be an ADHD, that could be a food allergy, that could be, an autoimmune condition, but something that needs chronic attention. And 11% of kids 3 to 17 currently have a diagnosed anxiety disorder. Like, I think, and we'll talk about this, I think social media is ruining our children and our youth. It is Yeah.
iPads, TV. We were just talking about this on our walk today. Like,
Mhm.
let them be bored. It's
I
okay, right?
know.
Or like I was telling Becca that I'm the mom at our friend's house and like they don't care because I said to them, like, I'm about to go get these iPads because there's no reason for us to be gathering and the kids to be on their iPads,
Yes.
right? Like if you had a long day and everybody's exhausted, they've
Oh,
just
yeah.
been playing for hours, cool. Like had some chill time. But like I truly think the iPads are making our kids no wonder that they can't pay attention and they
I
can't
know.
focus.
I
Every
know.
reel is they're just swiping up, swiping up,
Uh-huh.
swiping up.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I have rules. I have, my kids get screen time, they get to watch movies, they get to watch shows, but I have rules because on YouTube, you can watch shorts. Like, so if you give your kid a YouTube, they can just go and watch shorts like TikTok. And I'm like, no, we are not. We have kids YouTube. If you want to watch, they love this. Topper Gill, like, he creates like private rooms. It's weird. I mean, like, they're entertaining, but he apparently has a bad background, but I think he's changed. So they sometimes will watch those and they're like 45-minute longs where he like creates these private rooms and stuff. But even that, there's so much stimulation in front of them.
Mhm.
And so anxiety is up, depression is up, obesity is obviously up. We know that.
All right, if you're dealing with water retention, you're waking up puffy, your ankles or your wrists are really swollen, or you can't get your rings off, and maybe you're even dragging throughout the day, no matter how much water you drink, there's actually a good chance that you're not actually hydrating properly.
Exactly, because water alone is not enough. You need electrolytes, you need sodium, potassium, magnesium, because those things actually pull water into your cells. Otherwise, you're basically just flushing it out and wondering why you're still tired, you're still bloated, and you're still sluggish.
But here's the thing, most electrolyte supplements out there aren't helping you in any way because a lot of them contain things like natural flavors, food dyes, and maltodextrin, which can irritate your gut. And these things can also spike your blood sugar when you're trying to heal.
That's why we both started using Buoy. It's super simple, just trace minerals and electrolytes in liquid form. No flavors, no colors, no sugar, no sweeteners, and you squeeze it into whatever you are drinking: water, coffee, tea, smoothies, you name it.
And it's clinically backed by science too. So studies have shown that Buoy helps you hydrate better, 64% better in fact, and that's data coming from key blood and urinary markers, not just marketing fluff. And honestly, you can feel the difference. I've had many clients tell me their digestion's improved, they have less headaches, and they're better energy throughout the day.
And Buoy isn't just for people that go to the gym all the time and sweat a bunch. They actually offer a 35% lifetime discount for anyone that's struggling with chronic illnesses. Things like POTS, Hashimoto's, Crohn's disease, chronic migraines, and every autoimmune condition. They're really committed to making better hydration accessible to people who need it most.
I actually throw it in my coffee every morning because it's such an easy upgrade. You don't even taste it, but you're definitely gonna notice if you miss it.
If you're tired of playing hydration roulette and want something that actually supports your body, you've got to try Buoy. It's honestly one of the simplest ways to feel better faster. But it is significantly worsened in the past 20 years in terms of chronic disease, developmental disorders, sleep issues, obesity, emotional symptoms. And so what has changed, right? We already talked about screen time, which in turn creates sedentary lifestyles, which in turns creates irregular sleep. Like, they are all linked. And then they are all linked to ADHD because the kid is not recovering, they're not sleeping well, they're, not doing anything during the day, they're not getting outside and getting sunlight.
Mhm.
We are totally the family that in the summertime, our kids are not inside until like 8 p.m. at night, which then turns into really late dinners. But like, we have to fight our kids to get inside, which is how I want it. I want them to be outside. I want them to be going in dirt. I want them to be playing with their friends. I want that. And so, in a really large US survey, more than 4 hours a day of screen time was associated with higher odds of anxiety, depression, behavioral issues, ADHD. Physical activity, sleep deprivation, and bedtime regularity were mediated by all of these associations. So, another big thing I hear and I see a lot with my page is early puberty. And we see this with girls. They are hitting puberty earlier. They are getting their periods earlier. And a lot of that has to do with insulin resistance. A lot of it has to do with inflammation and misfiring of essentially early onset of hormones that should not be happening as early as they are. And metabolic systems are really dysfunctional. And so some studies report greater than a 60% increase in early onset of menstruation in female populations, which is not a good thing. Like, we do not want girls getting their period at age 8 or 9. And a lot of it tends to happen because, again, the ovaries start overproducing hormones, specifically testosterone. This is like a lot of PCOS starts happening earlier on. Estrogen gets really high. They aren't detoxing very well. So we're seeing that a lot. It's not a good sign. It is a sign of metabolic dysfunction. It's a sign of inflammation. Sleep health is increasingly disturbed, so kids are getting more fragmented, more delayed bedtimes. I see some of these reels of, like, day in the life of a late bedtime family, and it's like they're cleaning up at 8 p.m., they're making dinner together at 9 p.m., the 3-year-old's not going to bed until 1 a.m. I'm like, "What is happening?" Like, "No, no, no. We are built as humans to have a circadian rhythm that we go to bed when it is dark out." I am the total stickler. My husband is not as much. Like, we had a block party this
Mhm.
past weekend, and of course, everyone's out. Taylor's the youngest, so, like, I have to kinda be crazy with her, but, all the kids were out until, like, 11 o'clock. I was like,
Mhm.
"Nope, I don't care if she kicks and screams. I'm taking her back to sleep by 9 p.m. because that's when she's normally asleep by." Like, one night of disturbed sleep can do a lot of damage
Well,
even
then they're
for
just
kids.
disasters the next
Yes,
day for you too,
absolutely.
right?
So, the COVID-19 didn't help, turned in a lot of, like, delayed speech, a lot of issues with kids wearing masks. They couldn't do facial recognition, they couldn't see emotions, like, that was a big one. I Carson went through daycare in a mask, and my son had a massive drooling problem. Oh my god, by the time he got home, that mask was saturated,
Soaked.
soaking wet, because he
Yep.
was, like, 2 years old, 3 years old.
Yeah.
Forcing my 2-year-old to put a mask on, I wish I could go back in time. Like, I say this now, right? But in that moment, there were so many unknowns. I
Exactly.
don't fault anyone, but, like, it made Nick and I so angry. I'm like, "Of course he's fucking ripping the mask off." Sorry for my language. Of course he's
Well,
ripping
we
his
saw a
mask
lot of
off.
kids getting,
Dermatitis
yeah, I was
and,
gonna just
like,
say, like, all these rashes around, and, like, here's the thing, I don't know, some people, not as much as it was, but if you haven't seen, the mask didn't do shit. Like, I don't know, and double masking also didn't help. So, it's one of those things where, like, of course, in certain situations and certain populations, but, like, anyways, this podcast is not about that. This is really about how do we help our children and understand. And this is one thing that I just kind of want to cover here for moms who are listening to this. Understand that your baby's, your child's immune system is developing all the way up through puberty. So when we look at this, I'm going to break it down into just 4 phases here because we don't want to get too sciencey. We want to keep this high level. Phase one is what we call borrowed immunity. That's the first 6 months of life, right? So during pregnancy, antibodies cross the placenta. After birth, we have breast milk, especially that colostrum. If not, maybe we're giving human milk oligosaccharides and little things like that to support, the body's gut and the development of the gut microbiome. This passive immunity helps protect from infections. And while their own immune system kind of wakes up, those defenses are really important. That's why breast milk is seemingly like the liquid gold, and you can put it even on like skin issues and all of those things. So if you're like me and you didn't produce and you can't, and you don't have breast milk from somebody else, at least use something like human milk oligosaccharides and some bifidobacterium to really support seeding the microbiome with good bacteria. Okay. If you're, as a mother, if your microbiome is healthy, you're going to give the baby a head start. If you don't have enough bifidobacterium when you're pregnant, they're going to be low, and then you're going to want to support that as well. So, this is again why we like that begin baby. We often see more colic, eczema, food sensitivities, and like regurgitation, right? Screaming, throwing up, upset tummies, right? When they're little, if they don't have those defenses. Phase two is what we call kind of the gut training ground. So, this is 6 months to the first 3 years of life. Over 70% of the immune system we know lives in the gut. And early life is when it is being wired. It is understanding, how do I become adaptive to my environment? We have this adaptive immunity. And so when babies start eating real food, this is new bacteria coming to the system. Those microbes start teaching your immune cells, this is safe, this is not, right? We want the exposure. I think that people forgot because the terrain theory and the germ theory, right? We want exposure to dirt, to pets, to other kids, right? This trains our tolerance. This helps the body say, hey, these are germs. I got to deal with it every day. Mold and mycotoxins, we don't overreact. If it's too sterile, we see more allergies, eczema, autoimmune risk later in life. If we have more of this balanced exposure, we get more resiliency. Phase three is memory building. So, this is going to be in the years of 3 to 7. So, your body starts creating memory cells, the ones that remember what to attack each time, right? Hey, that bacteria is here. I had it before. I want to attack and kill it. They don't have to, get to a place where I'm going on antibiotics and things, right? Each cold or infection, think of this as like a rehearsal. So, Again, there's other things that are going to come here with pattern recognition, vaccines, natural exposures, both. They're going to teach the body that pattern recognition. And again, the gut microbiome continues to shape immune tone, whether this is overreacts with allergies or it underreacts and we're having frequent illnesses. Phase 4 is kind of this refinement. So again, 80 to 90% in this phase 7 plus to puberty is about, the immune system is mature, but it is still learning. And so this is when we can start to see some of those imbalances show up: autoimmune tendencies, chronic inflammation, food intolerances, frequent infections. Everything around you is going to matter. Your gut diversity, your nutrient status, toxic burden. Are you living in an environment? Are you being exposed to an environment? Think about all these kids in these schools that are notorious for mold, right? So we have all of these things that we have to consider. And so it sounds really overwhelming. But the whole point that I wanted to make with this is that you still have time. Like if your child is 7, 8, 9 years old, we still have time to correct some of these things to set them up. The generation right now, ages 13 to 17, has the highest autoimmune that we've ever seen in the groups, right? So Dr. Alyssa Song talked about that. And so what do we do as moms? Where do we go? Where do we turn? Vax or unvax, that is not the point of this at all. It's thinking about what is the child's symptomology and how can I come in and correct? So what's the number one thing? I think obviously the biggest input is our food and our water. Clean up your water, make sure they got a good filtered water bottle, send them to school with filtered water. I'm a freak about this. You guys know that. Get them off all of these food dyes and, anything that is artificial is really where I would start, because kids food, it's not food, right? It's big food making these franken foods that are laden with sugar. They taste good. I'm not going to lie to you. Listen, I like Twizzlers too. That red 40 didn't seemingly mess me up too bad. But oh, wait, did it? Because I had children's rheumatoid arthritis, then I had all this PMS. Like there was all of these things, right? And I was overweight. And I know that my diet was back and forth and it just wasn't good. And so that's where I would personally start, is really trying to swap things out, add more good. I think when we speak in the way of children, we don't want to create, what's the word that I'm looking for? Because I
We
don't
don't
think
wanna
it's a
create
bad
health
relations with food.
anxiety. I just like I gosh, I'm blanking on his name. No,
Or
Doctor
Supreme
Noah,
Nutrition.
Supreme Nutrition. He
Yeah.
talked about this the other day. He's like, "I do not think that teaching children health habits and making them almost fearful of unhealthy foods is a bad thing by any means." Like, and I listened to him talk about it and I was like, I agree with you. I think you have to create some type of awareness with children today because you guys, the power of sugar, the power of processed foods is just too strong. It is. They are so addictive. Our kids don't know any better. They aren't the ones that are yet going to have like the load of toxins just yet in their system to where those things are going to make them feel awful. Because again, most kids are resilient. They're going to like metabolically, kids should be healthy enough to eat those things and not gain a ton of weight yet. It's not that they're harmless to them, but, like, they're just not gonna feel the negative effects of it as adults do, and so, we do need to inform our kids. My kids know. When I tell them about things like, "Hey, we can have a balanced lunch," like, I'm okay with sending you I like those, the Thrive Market Pringle
Oh,
alternatives.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll send them with those, like, but we're also gonna have fruit, and we're gonna have, a Greek yogurt, and we're gonna have, a homemade PB&J, and these things that are more balanced because the if I'm just packing you with Doritos and a fruit roll up, no sugar or no fruit, no fiber, no balance, like, the kid's not gonna grow well, he's not gonna feel good, he's not gonna develop properly, and it's just the reality of it, and so as early as they can understand, I teach them those things, and I'm not afraid or shameful to say that. Like, I want my kids to be borderline afraid of sugar
Yeah.
because it is in everything.
I want them to ask. So, for example, when we left soccer last week, bag full of Gatorade and these gummy bears and like I don't even know what else was in there. And I'm like, okay, so we know that we have plans to do other things this weekend, that there's going to be treats. And
Mhm.
so I want you right now to make a decision. One, you can't have the Gatorade because it's just full of these artificial colors and everything. But two, I want you to make a decision, like, do you want this instant gratification with this that's not really even probably going to taste very good, or would you like to, get your treat later? And then, okay, we have that conversation, because it's really easy. If you just let kids dictate what they eat, they're going to eat sugar all the time. And what we also know in terms of, blood sugar and metabolic balance, this is not only going to lead to some of the crazy behaviors. Like that's pretty clear in the research. I don't anybody who if you're arguing that sugar is not needing to be limited for children, I think that this maybe isn't the podcast for you because it's just like ignorant at that point in time, right? Like to not make the connection that every time my child has high amounts of sugar, he is a disaster. It's not ADHD, it's metabolic dysregulation and dysfunction because you are fueling them with massive amounts of sugar that is also coming in with a lot of other chemicals and not even balanced with some good, healthy anti-inflammatory fat, some
Mhm.
good protein. Like we have a rule in our house, we are protein first. If you would like to have something, like, every morning he's gonna ask me if he can have some of this juice or this or that or pancakes or, a baked good. Cool. You can have that with your eggs,
Mhm.
right? Or your breakfast sausages that we're putting in with that, whatever. Anyways, we wonder why we have such crazy rates of ADHD, air quote here, and like this poor focus and these mood issues and these kids melting down. It is it is the things that are coming
Yes.
in through our diet.
Food
That's the
habits.
only answer that it could possibly be because it's not the Tylenol. I will tell you that. It's not the Tylenol. It is something that is happening in our food supply, some chemicals that are just over. And if you think about these kids too, think about you as an adult right now. If you went and you had a milkshake, for me, I would feel exhausted after. My stomach would feel heavy and just not
Bloated.
I would want to go lay down, right? Think about that amount of sugar, but in a body that is one third of your body weight. And you wonder why your kids are maniacs.
Mhm.
And I'm saying this like in terms of we've looked at this ourselves, right?
Oh, yeah.
Why was Marcus acting like that? Normally he's not like this. Oh, okay. Well, let's backtrack and think about what we've had today
Mhm.
and the amount of sugar accumulation. And so it's hard. It is absolutely hard. But here's the thing, like parenting is hard. It's a lot easier when you don't have such triggers coming in and then they are more controlled because if their blood sugar is all over the place, you can expect that their behavior is also going to be all over the place.
Yes, absolutely.
And
So
there's other factors too.
oh, for
Before I
sure.
get hate on the internet, understand we recognize there are a ton of other
Oh,
factors.
absolutely, absolutely. So, some things that I would say to watch for with your kids, frequent constipation or, like, stomach pain, they say their stomach hurts a lot, they're trying to go to the bathroom and they can't. Something I actually noticed with Taylor, and again, you need to hold me to getting Taylor some type of GI testing. She had a cupcake at the event Saturday night. I got there and her face looked like a Smurf, and I was like, "Who gave her this blue cupcake?" Of course, I love my husband. She asked for it. He can't say no to her. She ate this blue cupcake.
She still doesn't like him even though he says yes all the time.
And her poop last night was
Blue.
blue, and I was like, "Dude, that's like 2 days after you had that cupcake. That's a long transit time." And so, again, my daughter does not have the constipation issues that my son had, but she definitely has more floating stools, she has some pale stools, so I know that there's probably some liver gallbladder stuff that, like, is a little sluggish for her, so I might just start her on the Buoy liver, but I know that it'll cause some detox things, but either way, frequent constipation or stomach pain that they complain about, um, food food aversions, like, your kid not wanting certain foods is also a problem. It's a sign of typically nutrient deficiencies, potentially low zinc, low stomach acid levels, frequent colds. So, like, if your kid gets strep, if they get ear infections all the time, if they have had frequent antibiotic use, if they have eczema, all of those are red flags. Difficulty falling asleep or your kid's waking up a lot. This can be a little bit routine. Like, if the kid is you are going and getting them as soon as they wake up. You are like, yes, you can create a habit, but frequent waking up is also typically a sign of gut issues, typically a sign of cortisol issues, which can be driven by sugar. Trouble tolerating like exercise or the kids gaining weight really easily at a young age. You guys, I said earlier, metabolically, kids are resilient. Like the kid should be able to eat a bunch of ho-hos and not gain weight. So if they are, that's typically a sign of some metabolic dysfunction that's already happening early on. And that's something that we want to dive into, right? Hair thinning or hair loss, headaches or like dizziness or sensitivities, light and noise sensitivities. Um, and then some non-specific, right? Like nausea, fatigue, pain without clear organic cause, all of those things. Those are things that you dive into. Like evaluate, can we change up diet at all? Is it maybe water quality something we need to look at? Do I need to consider getting my kid maybe a hair tissue mineral analysis test? Very non-invasive.
Mhm.
Stool test, also pretty non-invasive. Like you can do a lot of gentle things. We love BioRay. We love Genexa. We love a lot of these Mary Ruths. Like they have a lot
Mhm.
of great options for kids to be able to get your kids support that an adult normally can get, but in the proper dosing, obviously, for
Yeah.
children. So there's a ton of options out there.
A ton, and I mean, I could tell you countless stories, like, we have even today, Andrea sharing some things about, 4-year-old, like, oh my gosh, like, sleeping through the night now, not waking up multiple times in the night, pooping every day, but not just once, like, going 3 times a day, having these great bowel movements that they're not complaining of, "This is pain," right? "Mommy, my stomach hurts," those types of things. Kids that are focusing better in school and mom's saying, "Oh my gosh, they're eating different foods now," like, they're open to, eating things that they weren't before. One story that I've shared before about Austin, and just I love how resilient kids are. He had H. pylori though, and was working with some other providers, and it just wasn't addressed appropriately. And so we saw that come up again. And then we ran a hair tissue mineral analysis because we also want to ask the question of like, why does this keep coming back? We don't want to just say, okay, H. pylori, let's address it with herbs. We want to think entire terrain and what else is influencing this. And so for him, he was also having migraines and a lot of itching and a lot of like allergy issues. And we saw zinc deficiency, magnesium deficiency. We were working just to support little things, gentle things that we even use, like Bloat Ease Pro, immunoglobulins. I think everybody, including children, can benefit from them. And so you just change up based upon their weight, the dosing. And that's a really nice, gentle way to support inflammation in the GI tract, bloating. It can act as a gentle binder, right? Again, we don't know what's happening in their environment at schools. But if you say, hey, this makes sense when my child started daycare or my child started going to this school or to this place regularly, and now they're having more allergy issues or food sensitivity issues, they're sick more often, or skin issues, whatever it might be. We want to think about what these environmental triggers are. And a lot of times you can only control so much, right? So these immunoglobulins can be a nice little way to support, it's not my favorite way to do a binder, but it does have some clinical evidence to and research to be able to kind of bind to toxins and help them remove from the body. But at the same time, it helps with healing and sealing the lining of the gut. Okay. When we think about gut on fire, brain on fire, hello, mood dysregulation, neurotransmitter dysfunction, all of these things that can really impact their ability to learn and, memory and cognition and focus and things like that. So there's just so much that can be done, and they are pretty resilient, like I mentioned. So for our kids program, it's like a 4 to 6 month process. Like, we don't want you working on your kids' health long term, right? We want you to set them up for success. We want you just within a month or two, we're seeing some of these things like really, really improve. And the HTMA paired with the GMAP is personally my favorite way, to address kiddos. If there is the ability and a need to do like an MRT, in some cases, we will do that, or we'll do, other testing as warranted. As there's other things going on. So links are in the show notes. But mamas, I would just really encourage you, like, ask questions. And if you feel like you're not getting the help and the support from your pediatrician, remember that you can fire your pediatrician and find a new one. You can reach out and take a different approach from functional medicine. Their job is not to help you resolve these things at a root cause. Their job is to say, X symptom, Y medication. That's literally, we've had multiple doctors on our show talk about this. I was handed a sheet. Here's the symptom. Here's the medication, right? Or here's the diagnosis and medication that follows and pairs with that. And when we think about doing that root cause work, setting them up for life, supporting their immune system now, so hopefully we can prevent or, reduce the risk of having autoimmune. I'm doing it all for my kids, right? I'm thinking about that. And so, the big thing that I say in my kids' constipation cure guide is, number one, there is have fun with this. And kind of like I said before, I think you want to take the approach of adding more good. And yeah, you can start to educate them. We don't want to fear all these things immediately, but really start to educate them. How did that feel in your body? Marcus and I had a lot of those conversations like, hey, when you had this with protein first, how did you feel? Like, did you feel a little more even keeled with your energy? Comparatively to this past weekend, he had a bowl of cereal and didn't have good amount of protein or anything prior to that. He was so unfocused in soccer. I mean, it was a game. Everybody has their off days, but I know, and we had a very important conversation post soccer, and he's like, "Yeah, mom," like, because we had multiple conversations that day about this, but he came to me later in the afternoon. We were painting pumpkins, and he's like, that cereal this morning, like, I was cramping on the field, like, he was holding his side, he's like, "My stomach hurts, so, like, I don't think I should have cereal before," and I was like, "Right. Also, what about your focus? Because, like, you were just not yourself in the game." I mean, it was embarrassing for all parties. So, um, thinking about that too, and, like, how you have those conversations of Your best games are when you have your eggs and or sometimes
Mhm.
like if it's an early game, he just doesn't eat and he eats after, you know? So just tying it to them because they don't understand blood sugar. They're not gonna understand any of that. What they're gonna understand is how it feels in their body and that they played better and they didn't have stomach cramping and they were able to focus and be on point versus not. So remember to have fun with it, add new foods, try to diversify. And the more that you add, the good, it's easier to push out the bad or make those alternative swaps, like Becca was saying earlier, right? Thrive Market, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods. There's a lot of brands now that are coming out with cleaner versions and variations of things that can be good alternative swaps for you. Costco even has a lot of those things now. So if you like this episode, let us know. I'd love to hear too. Like, what are you struggling with in terms of maybe it's your children's health or your grandchildren's health? Because then we can start to do more podcasts. We can bring Andrea in, other experts in to do more podcasts around some of those specific things. But at least from a foundational perspective, I think you've got a lot in this podcast that you can take away to start with.